He stood outside the gates of a firm he once hoped to work for, dressed in plain clothes, carrying his creased resume and carrying tremendous hope within. But even before he was able to enter, a security guard's laughter rang out in the lobby. Onlookers pointed. Whispers ensued. "He doesn't belong here." They judged him by the color of his skin, by what he wore, not having any idea of the truth he bore. Because tomorrow, the same man they ridiculed would return through those doors, not as an applicant, but as the owner. What transpired in between made all the difference. Malik had always thought that hard work could muzzle prejudice. Each morning he woke before the sun, taking the first bus through town to the worksite he oversaw. He wasn't wealthy, but he was proud. Proud of the home he'd constructed for his mother, of the regard in which he was held by those who actually knew him. But beyond that inner circle, the world did not perceive Malik in the same manner. To strangers, he was just another black man in dirty clothes, invisible until judged. He dreamed of starting his own company, a place where dignity mattered more than skin color. And when the chance finally came, he showed up full of hope. But that morning, before anyone learned his name, someone decided who he was for him. As Malik entered the glass building of the company, sunlight glistened off its silver walls like a promise. He had spent months in anticipation of this moment, the meeting that would seal his purchase of the very construction company where he once labored. But as he entered, dressed in his best shirt and scuffed shoes, the world gave way. The receptionist's courteous smile went rigid. Her gaze darted to his attire, then to the security guard. In a matter of seconds, the atmosphere grew thick. "Can I help you?" she asked in a sharp, wary voice, the kind reserved for problems, not commerce. Malik said he was there for a meeting with the board. Her eyebrows wrinkled. She asked again, more slowly this time, like he couldn't comprehend English. Then the guard appeared, big and stern, requesting ID, for verification. For an explanation, he was standing in the lobby. Malik presented his invitation letter, printed on the company's logo. They hardly gave it a glance. They murmured to each other, casting glances his way as if he was a danger. The receptionist let out a sigh and signaled him to wait, in the outdoor waiting area. Each minute spent outside that building was a silent punishment. Onlookers gawked. A man threw him a coin, thinking he was begging. Malik tightened his fist but remained motionless, swallowing the rage bubbling inside of him. He remembered his father, a man who had instilled in him that dignity wasn't something other people granted you. It was something you bore, regardless of who attempted to strip it away from you. Then, as he was just preparing to leave, a high-end car stopped. Out came a young executive in a business suit, phone held tightly against his ear. Malik knew him, someone who used to work for him on a project many years back. The man did not even look at Malik as he strode past, but Malik overheard him say, "Security really needs to keep people like that away from the entrance." Something within Malik broke. The shame, the stares, the silent humiliation, all of it crashed against years of being underestimated, dismissed, erased. Yet he did not lash back, took a deep breath, squared his shoulders, and walked away. He sat in his tiny apartment that evening, the invitation still laid out flat on the table. His phone vibrated. An email with the final go-ahead of his company's acquisition. He was the majority shareholder of the very firm which had looked past him earlier that morning. He didn't celebrate. Not yet. Instead, he remembered the receptionist's eyes, the guard's smirk, the careless words that cut deeper than they even realized. Tomorrow, he would be back. Not for revenge, but for truth. Because sometimes, the only way to reveal injustice is to let it show itself. The following morning, Malik strode back into that very lobby, head held high, heart firm. He wasn't carrying a resume this time. He was carrying the documents of ownership, signed and stamped late at night. The same receptionist sat there, drumming her nails on the desk, eyes flicking up just long enough to notice him before returning to their hard-edged stare. "Sir, I explained yesterday," she said, but Malik did not pause. The guard was already approaching him, hand hovering near his belt, prepared to take him out. Then the moment froze the whole floor. Behind Malik, 2 board members arrived, grinning broadly. "Mr. Daniels, we're so glad you've made it. Congratulations, sir. The company is yours now." The words struck like a thunderclap. The guard stopped in mid-step. The receptionist's face blanched. Papers shook in her hands. Every set of eyes in the lobby turned to the man they had discounted. The man they'd laughed at for being out of place. Malik remained silent initially. He just swept the room with his eyes, allowing silence to shout louder than anger ever could. The very same folks who had criticized his worth based on his color now couldn't look him in the eye. The very same who had viewed a poor black man now viewed the reality, the owner, the leader, the man they'd attempted to set aside. He thanked the board members in hushed tones, his voice steady but calm. Then, facing the receptionist once again, he said, "Next time a person walks in with hope, perhaps see their heart before their shoes." A pin could have fallen. No one uttered a word. No one stirred. And as he entered the elevator, the very same one they'd denied him the day before, the doors shut on a moment that would be etched in memory long after shock wore off. For in that 1 second, the force of prejudice confronted the reality it could never erase. In the subsequent weeks, Malik never spoke about what occurred that morning. He didn't terminate anyone, he didn't retaliate, he merely led, with the same soft strength that brought him there. But it spread. The tale of the man they rejected who became the owner coursed through the company, through the city, through people's discussions. Others called it poetic justice. Malik called it a lesson that the world still won't learn. He started making a difference from within, hiring based on potential, not looks, giving people a chance who, like him, were judged first before they could be understood. And gradually, walls started crumbling. Not the walls of the building, but the ones erected in people's minds. But even with victory, the memory of that day never left him. The gaze in their eyes, the shame that ensued, it was a reminder, to him and to all who listened to his tale, that racism does not always yell. It sometimes whispers in polite tones, masked behind false smiles and quiet presumptions. Malik's tale wasn't one of revenge or victory. It was one of truth, of what occurs when the world finally does see a man, not for his color, but for his character. And perhaps, his tale compels us to ask the toughest question of all. How many more Maliks will be mocked, questioned, or discredited before we learn to observe people for who they really are? Because ultimately, the shade of a man's skin should never determine the heft of his worth. But until that truism becomes reality, tales like Malik's will continue to be told. And each time they are, the world loses a little bit of its humanity.